Why did Roddy the Ruin smile at the end? House of the Dragon warning, spoiler warning. This video contains major spoilers for the House of the Dragon Season 3 finale, including the Battle of Tumbleton, Roddy the Ruin's final moments, Ormund Hightower's death, and what the ending means. Why did Roddy the Ruin smile when he realized he was about to die? That tiny smile may have been one of the most important character moments in the entire House of the Dragon Season 3 finale. Because Roddy wasn't smiling because he had gone crazy. He wasn't celebrating the death of Ormund Hightower, and he certainly wasn't happy about being burned alive. The smile tells us something much more important about who Roddy Dustin really was. He finally got exactly what he wanted, a glorious death. Throughout Season 3, Roddy the Ruin has been presented as a very different kind of warrior. He is Lord Roderick Dustin, the leader of the Winter Wolves, the hardened northern soldiers who came south to fight for Rhaenyra Targaryen. When Roddy first appears, his attitude toward the war is already clear. He and his men aren't marching south because they expect an easy victory. They have come to die for the Dragon Queen. That line becomes extremely important when we reach the Battle of Tumbleton, because Roddy has never been afraid of death. In fact, it almost seems like he has been searching for the right death. And that idea comes directly from the character's history. The Winter Wolves are largely made up of older northern warriors. They are men who understand that they have already lived long lives and may not have many years left. Instead of remaining safely at home, they choose to go south and fight in the Dance of the Dragons. For Roddy, dying in battle isn't necessarily a tragedy. Dying without purpose would be. And that is the key to understanding his smile. At Tumbleton, Roddy finally gets the kind of battlefield ending he has been waiting for. He isn't killed while running away. He isn't murdered in his sleep. He doesn't die forgotten in some random corner of Westeros. He dies after personally helping bring down the enemy commander. That commander is Ormund Hightower. Ormund is leading the Green forces at Tumbleton while Roddy is fighting for Rhaenyra's Blacks. Their confrontation isn't really a personal feud. These two men simply happen to be the commanders standing on opposite sides of the same devastating civil war. But when Roddy reaches Ormund, the battle suddenly becomes much more personal. Roddy attacks, Ormund fights back, and Roddy ultimately kills him. The victory comes at an enormous price. Roddy is already badly wounded, and the battlefield around him is collapsing. Then the situation becomes even more terrifying. Ulf the White unleashes Silverwing, and Dragonfire begins consuming the battlefield. Roddy realizes what is coming, and instead of panicking, he smiles. That is the moment viewers are asking about. Why? Because Roddy knows that this is the death he wanted. He has fulfilled his purpose. He came south. He helped destroy the enemy army. He killed Ormund Hightower. And now, instead of slowly fading away from his wounds, he is about to die in the middle of one of the greatest battles of the dance. For a warrior like Roddy, that is almost perfect. And this is where Tommy Flanagan's performance becomes especially important. The smile isn't a happy smile. It's the expression of a man who knows that his story has reached its final page and is completely at peace with it. There is also another important detail. Roddy's smile comes after he has accomplished something extremely difficult. He has killed Ormund Hightower. And in the chaos of Tumbleton, that matters. Ormund is one of the most important Green commanders. Taking him off the battlefield creates a major leadership problem for the Hightower army. So Roddy's final moments aren't meaningless. He knows that his death has achieved something. And that is very different from simply wanting to die. Roddy wants his death to have meaning. This is also why his relationship with the Winter Wolves matters. These men followed him into the south knowing they might never return home. They weren't ordinary soldiers looking for riches or glory. They were older warriors who wanted to end their lives on their own terms. And Roddy embodies that philosophy more than anyone. The show even gives him a strange sense of humor and confidence in the middle of horrific situations. That makes his final smile feel consistent with the character we've been watching. He has spent the entire war treating death almost like an appointment he knows is coming. At Tumbleton, he finally gets to keep that appointment. But there is an even deeper meaning to the smile. Roddy has lived in a world where warriors are constantly told that dying honorably is the greatest thing they can achieve. The North, especially, has a strong culture built around loyalty, duty, sacrifice, and reputation. Roddy doesn't want to die as an old man who simply faded away. He wants to die as Roddy the Ruin. And by the time the Dragonfire reaches him, he has earned that name. He has fought some of the most important battles of the dance. He has helped destroy enemy armies. He has killed powerful opponents. And now he has taken down Ormund. The Dragonfire is almost the final punctuation mark. It ends his story in the same way he lived it, violently, suddenly, and on a battlefield. There is also an interesting contrast between Roddy and many of the other characters in House of the Dragon. Most characters are desperately trying to survive. Aegon wants his throne back. Aemond wants power. Rhaenyra wants legitimacy. Alicent wants to escape the consequences of the war. Daemon spends much of the season wrestling with what his choices have created. But Roddy is different. He isn't trying to survive the dance. He's trying to make his death count. And that makes him strangely peaceful at the exact moment when everyone else is terrified. That's why his smile can feel almost shocking. The audience expects fear. Instead, we get acceptance. And there is another layer to this moment when you compare the show with Fire and Blood. The book version of Roddy's death is also legendary. During the Battle of Tumbleton, Roddy fights his way toward Ormund Hightower. He suffers a devastating injury, but continues fighting. He eventually kills Ormund and his cousin Brynden Hightower before dying from his own wounds. The HBO adaptation changes the exact circumstances and presentation of the death, but it preserves the most important part of Roddy's story. He reaches the enemy commander, he kills him, and he dies in the process. The show's decision to let Dragonfire take Roddy and Ormund together adds another layer of symbolism. For a few seconds, the two enemies are no longer commanders of the Greens and Blacks. They are simply two men caught in the consequences of the war they helped create. Their armies wanted victory. Their leaders wanted power. But both men end up consumed by the same fire. And Roddy seems to understand that. That may be another reason for the smile. He knows the war is bigger than him. He knows the dance will continue after he is gone. But at least his own part in it is finished, and he has finished it on his own terms. This is also why Roddy's final moment has connected so strongly with viewers. Online fan discussions after the finale repeatedly focused on the same idea. Roddy looked like a man who was genuinely enjoying the fact that he was finally getting the glorious death he had wanted. One popular reaction essentially summed up the character as someone who was simply having the time of his life because he was dying doing what he loved. That interpretation fits perfectly with what Tommy Flanagan brought to the role. Roddy doesn't need a long speech explaining his feelings. The smile does it for him. He knows he's finished. He knows the Dragonfire is coming, and he knows he has already done his job. So, instead of begging for his life, he accepts the ending. And that's what makes the scene surprisingly emotional. Roddy is not necessarily celebrating death itself. He's celebrating the fact that his life has ended with purpose. He came south with the Winter Wolves to fight for Rhaenyra. He survived battle after battle. He became one of the most feared northern commanders in the war. And at Tumbleton, he accomplished the one thing that mattered most at that moment. He took down Ormund Hightower. Then he looked toward the fire and smiled. The moment also reinforces one of the biggest themes of House of the Dragon. The Dance of the Dragons is a war where nobody really wins. People can win battles, they can capture castles, they can kill rival commanders. But every victory creates another tragedy. Roddy's final victory is the perfect example. He kills Ormund, but he dies immediately afterward. The Blacks gain an important kill, but Tumbleton is devastated. The Green Army loses its commander, but the war continues. And Roddy, one of the most entertaining new characters of the season, is gone. That is why his smile shouldn't be interpreted as proof that he wanted to die for no reason. He wanted a meaningful death. There is a difference. Roddy wasn't trying to throw his life away. He was trying to make sure that when his life ended, it meant something. And at Tumbleton, it did. He died fighting the enemy. He died after killing their commander. He died surrounded by the chaos of the war he had willingly entered. And most importantly, he died exactly as the character had been built to die, as Roddy the Ruin. So, why did Roddy smile at the end? Because he wasn't afraid anymore. He had already accepted death long before the dragonfire arrived. He had completed his mission. He had killed Ormund Hightower. And he finally received the glorious battlefield death he had been searching for. That smile was satisfaction. It was acceptance. And, in a strange way, it was freedom. Roddy knew that the dance would continue without him. He knew Rhaenyra's war wasn't over. He knew the Greens were still fighting. But none of that mattered in his final seconds. His part was finished. And if Roddy the Ruin had to die, there probably wasn't a better ending for him. Not peacefully, not quietly, not forgotten. Roddy wasn't smiling because death was funny. He was smiling because for the first time in the entire war, everything had gone exactly the way he wanted. He came south looking for a glorious death. At Tumbleton, he found it.